My name is Carrie. I now live with my daughter Deanna and her husband Garrett and their daughter Sarah. This year I turned 70, and it feels like a significant milestone. My husband Matt passed away 3 years ago due to illness, and originally I was living alone until my daughter and her husband invited me to stay with them. Mom, won't you come live with us? What? But wouldn't I be a burden?
No, we want to live with Carrie. It's not exactly payback, but we really appreciate everything you've done for us, Carrie. Why don't we all live together happily?
I was feeling lonely living alone, so I was grateful that they cared so much. Sarah, my first granddaughter, is such a good kid, and I'm living happily now. Feeling the need for a purpose in life, I'm fortunate to be healthy and currently working part-time at the checkout counter of a supermarket. It's a small supermarket, but well loved by the locals and everyone is friendly. Even the young part-timers look up to me, and I have no complaints. However, there is one thing that bothers me. That is, oh, working part-time again today, Carrie? Catherine, welcome. The woman who comes to the supermarket is Catherine, my son Polly's wife. That makes her Deanna's sister-in-law. She got married just before Deanna did and lives a bit far from here. Honestly, I've never gotten along well with Catherine. It seems she didn't think highly of me from the beginning, and she often made snide remarks, even during greetings. Catherine, let's get along well from now on. Carrie, that's fine. You don't need to bother. What? You don't need to worry about us, so please don't interfere too much, okay? I'll handle family matters just fine. We don't want any mother-in-law and daughter-in-law conflict, do we? It's stressful for both of us. She put up a wall from the beginning and we were shocked. At the same time, I didn't have a good impression of her. Matt didn't think highly of Catherine either, but Polly seemed quite smitten with her.
I'm definitely going to marry Catherine,
he used to say. Polly was a troublemaker since he was young, and we often struggled to handle him. He had behavioral issues at school, and we were frequently called in. Matt initially wanted to discuss it at home, but eventually he gave up. Polly finally got a job and started working, and just when we thought we could relax, he brought Catherine to introduce her to us. Catherine was a strikingly beautiful woman with a flamboyant appearance. On the day of the greeting, I cooked a big meal, but Catherine didn't seem to like it. I'm not really into greasy food. It seems like some old-fashioned country cooking, she said, hardly eating. Matt was about to yell at her, but we managed to finish the greeting peacefully. We tried to convince them a few times, but they ended up getting married and now live a bit far from here. It was when Matt was still alive that he warned,
You better be sure about this. Don't come crying to me if something goes wrong.
But Polly was full of unfounded confidence, saying,
It'll be absolutely fine.
We only saw each other at Christmas gatherings, but ever since I started my part-time job, I happened to run into Catherine at my workplace. That encounter is unforgettable because of how shocking it was. Oh, isn't that Carrie? Catherine, why are you here? Why? Isn't that rude to say to a customer? Sorry, I was just surprised. And here you are at 70, working as a part-timer. Are you struggling for money? Or have you run out of money to give to your sisters? Catherine, with her condescending attitude, continued to make snide remarks, taking advantage of the fact that it wasn't busy. Apparently, though they lived a distance away, she just happened to be shopping nearby, and we happened to meet. No, I started part-time work because I thought it would be fulfilling. Everyone at work is nice and I'm content. Catherine seemed surprised for a moment at my words, but then burst out laughing. Carrie, don't push yourself. You don't have much time left anyway. I was just stunned by her words, suggesting a person's lifespan is so carelessly. As the line at the register started to grow, Catherine left. Carrie, are you okay? Yes, sorry about that. She's my son's wife. I didn't mean to cause trouble. No way. That attitude is unbelievable. No respect for a mother-in-law at all. The part-timer who overheard was visibly upset. I was touched that someone cared about me and thanked her for her concern. Let me know if she comes back. Yes, thank you. I thought it was just a coincidence. They live far away, so I didn't expect to see her for a while. But reality proved harsh. Catherine started coming to my workplace about 3 times a week, deliberately seeking me out to make unpleasant remarks. She even spoke disdainfully about Deanna and Garrett, and as if that wasn't bad enough, she even demanded discounts on the store's products. "Oh, Carrie, this deli container's lid is open. Isn't that unhygienic? I'll buy it, so give me a discount." I can't do that. Sorry. Please buy something else. We'll dispose of that one." "What? I'm offering to buy it for you." Every time Catherine came to work, the manager would apologize, and she seemed to enjoy his discomfort with a malicious smile. I was on the verge of exploding with anger. It was becoming a nuisance to the workplace, and I didn't want to trouble Deanna and her family. More importantly, for my own dignity, I called Catherine the next day. "Catherine, please stop coming to my workplace and causing trouble. If this continues, I will have to take action as a mother-in-law." Catherine laughed mockingly over the phone. "Trouble? I'm just worried about Carrie." I wanted to scream at her claim of concern, but I held back and continued calmly. "Your actions are a nuisance. I won't tolerate it any longer." "What? You think it's wrong for me to worry about Carrie? I don't think I deserve to be treated like this." Unrepentant and even defiant, Catherine frustrated me. "Anyway, please stop doing this in the future." Seemingly displeased with my inability to tolerate her any longer, Catherine spat out her last words. "Don't act all high and mighty. You bottom-tier old lady who can't do anything but work before hitting the grave. I'll be sure to tell Polly about this." With that, she hung up. True to her word, the next day I received a call from Polly.
"What the hell did you say to Catherine, Mom? That's awful!"
As soon as I answered, Polly was yelling at me. "It's Catherine who's awful."
"What are you talking about? You said terrible things to Catherine. She's crying. No matter if you're my mother, I won't forgive this."
Apparently, Catherine had told Polly a fabricated story, making it seem like I had severely scolded her. Believing her, Polly was furious. If that was all, it would have been fine, but Polly kept calling in anger for hours and finally said,
"If this happens again, I won't forgive you,"
and hung up. "Mom, what's wrong?" Deanna, welcome back." "Nothing, really." "That's a lie. That voice was Polly's, right?" Deanna looked at me sharply. It was hard to stick to the lie. Polly and Deanna, although siblings, if I keep this from them, it might someday cause trouble. I even worried it might harm Sarah. With that thought, I decided to tell Deanna and the others everything. Deanna related to Garrett, and eventually the three of us sat down to talk in the evening. "I can't believe that idiot Polly. He barely involved himself in Matt's funeral, but calls only in times like this? Unbelievable."
"That happened? I'm sorry I didn't notice."
"No, it's not your fault, but I'm worried it might trouble you, like today with the phone call." "Don't worry about that. More importantly, Polly may not realize it, but you should be more careful around Catherine."
"That is..."
Deanna and Garrett exchanged a look, then nodded and began to speak.
"Actually, near my company there's this bar district. One day when I happened to go for a drink, I spotted Catherine there, and she was with a man I've never seen before." Honestly, I felt a pang of sympathy for my own son and couldn't say anything. "Well, that's his own fault. But if something like this happens again to Mom, we need to think about it." Deanna said this with a cheerful smile. "For now, leave this to us. Right, Garrett?" "Yes, leave it to me, Carrie."
"Yes, thank you. But really don't push yourselves." I agreed, feeling somewhat overwhelmed by their insistence. Anyway, I thought it best to have nothing more to do with it all. But reality doesn't always go as planned. Catherine came again, seemingly displeased with our last phone conversation. "Oh, Carrie, still working part-time, I see." "Catherine, we talked about this on the phone, didn't we? It seems nothing got through to you. I'm disappointed." Catherine seemed displeased by my words. "Are you sure you should be saying that, Carrie? Do you know that Polly's client is Garrett's company?" Catherine suddenly laughed mockingly and blurted out, Hearing this for the first time, I was shocked and my eyes widened. Seeming pleased with my reaction, Catherine cheerfully laughed and whispered to me, "Come to the cafe by the river called Lark later today, if you don't want Garrett's company to go under. Okay?" Catherine's smile looked devilish. I could only nod and said, "Understood," and she left the shop contentedly, still smiling. After my part-time shift, I headed to the designated cafe. Catherine was already there and beckoned me over. "You came as I expected, Carrie." Her sinister smile sent a chill down my spine. The cafe was quiet, seemingly unnoticed by others. Inside, the two of us sat in the tense silence. "What do you want?" "I was hurt by what happened before, so I want you to take responsibility," Catherine continued with a smile. "Besides, Polly is an executive in his company, involved in big deals. His company and Garrett are about to have a major business deal. But what if that deal falls through because of you, Carrie? Wouldn't Garrett lose his job?" "You! If you care about your beloved Garrett and Deanna, promise to pay me $300,000 right now." "300,000? It's a big amount, but you said a lot to me, right? It's only fair. If you don't agree..." Catherine raised her hand. A menacing man emerged from the back of the cafe and stood in front of the table. "This man, a friend of mine, works in a, let's say, shady world. So if you don't pay, I won't be responsible for what happens to Deanna or Sarah, okay?" I was speechless at her shocking words. Realizing I had married my son to such a terrible woman was overwhelming. I glared at her and managed to say, "Understood." "I appreciate your understanding. And you know what will happen if you tell Deanna or Garrett about this, right?" "Yes." "Then I look forward to your cooperation, Carrie." I left the cafe feeling like I was being chased out. Returning home, the house was still and quiet. More than anything, I was shocked at the ugliness of the person Polly had married. Sighing, I sat in front of my husband's picture. "Dad, I'll do my best. I will protect what you left me in my own way." Declaring this, I steeled myself. I was determined not to let Catherine have her way. "Remember this. I'll make you regret everything you've done." First, I set a date to transfer the money to Catherine. Having agreed to pay and knowing she expected it, I calmly set a time frame to prevent any harm to Deanna or Sarah. Explaining the difficulty of the amount for a part-timer like me, I promised to pay within a month, and surprisingly, Catherine agreed cheerfully. "Understood. So within a month, then?" "Yes, I'll make sure to pay." That's because there was a reason. I set it for a month. Within a month, a relative's funeral was scheduled. I wanted to resolve things there, so I arranged it without causing any issues. Today is the day of the funeral, where many relatives will gather, including Polly and his wife. I decided to settle things there. "Oh, Sarah has grown so much." "It's been a while, everyone." Our family relatives are relatively close-knit. Just before the funeral started, Polly and his wife arrived.
"Wow, this atmosphere brings back memories."
"Ugh, this country vibe is too much. Can't wait to leave." Despite the occasion, their usual attitudes were unchanged. As one of the uncles was about to say something, Catherine approached me first. "Hello, Carrie." Her face clearly showed anger, probably about the money not being transferred yet. "Hello, Catherine." After exchanging greetings, the funeral started, so Catherine couldn't say more and took her seat. But her expression seemed to say, "You'll remember this." After the funeral ended, the meal started. The topics were nostalgic memories of the deceased relative, current updates, and talks about my husband, Matt.
"Used to go drinking with Matt a lot."
"Really, time flies."
"But it's important to have something like that necklace to remember them by, isn't it?"
"Indeed." I touched the necklace as I spoke. The small pearl necklace was a gift from Matt. Lost in these fond memories, Catherine suddenly raised her voice.
"But is it a tactless to wear such a thing here?"
The relatives in the room started murmuring. Besides, that's a fake, right? No such tarnished pearls exist. Well, fake pearls suit a poor person like Carrie, right? How dare you?
Wait, Deanna, calm down.
But Catherine's cheeks were flushed, probably from drinking. Seemingly emboldened by alcohol, she blurted out these words. Honestly, it was different from what I expected, but she was self-destructing, so I silently vowed to make her pay dearly. Before I could respond, the relative spoke up. What is she talking about? Carrie poor? Don't make such jokes.
How could you say such a thing? It's just your lack of judgment.
The relatives, angered by Catherine's comments, spoke back, and she seemed surprised. I stood up and faced her. I don't know why you think this pearl is fake, but it's from Matt's jewelry store. It's definitely not fake. Tiffany, ever heard of it? What? Tiffany? As in the famous jewelers?
You married him without knowing his father-in-law's company. Carrie used to be the assistant manager of that store.
But she's working part-time. That's what I said before. Mom is working part-time just for fulfillment. We don't need her money, but she insists on paying us living expenses every month. Besides, she's retired now, but there's an inheritance and savings left by Matt. We're far from poor. Catherine looked dumbfounded. Polly hurried to her side, trying to defend her.
Wait, don't blame her.
Polly, look at reality. She's awful.
Shut up, little sister. What do you know?
Catherine glared at us. I came here to settle this thoroughly, so I began. You won't get away with this. Who won't? Your wife running a scam? And if it gets out she has a boyfriend, you'd be the one who couldn't bear it. What? How do you know that?
About that, let me explain. Here's the proof.
Garrett showed documents revealing various truths. Photos included the cafe I visited, the man Catherine was with, and Catherine walking closely with the man who wasn't Polly.
What's this about?
Yes, Catherine had been involved in scamming people with bad friends from her student days. That was the full story behind her treatment of me, and Polly was partly to blame too.
Polly, while our companies do business, I've never heard your name mentioned. But you've been telling Catherine you're an executive, but you hold no such position, right?
What? You've been lying to me? Hearing Garrett's explanation, Catherine started screaming. Sighing, I retrieved an attached case from the reception, opening it in front of them. It contained $300,000 in cash. Here's the $300,000 you unfairly demanded from me, Catherine. Emphasizing unfairly, she glared at me, her face turning red. I had recorded everything from the day she took me to the cafe. I never intended to treat my son and wife this way, but I thought it was best for them to learn a hard lesson. However, the condition is that you never appear before us again. You've caused enough trouble, and when I die, you won't get a penny of my inheritance.
Wait, Mom, I'll leave Catherine.
What? Polly, when you decided to marry Catherine, Matt and I tried to stop you. Weren't you going to be happy with her? You're her husband. Don't change your attitude now. Support her until the end.
What?
Stunned, the relatives started shouting,
That's right. Get out of here.
Initially, the two of them talked back, but they couldn't stand against the majority and left the shop meekly.
Carrie, that must have been tough. Are you okay?
Yes, I'm sorry everyone for causing such a commotion.
Don't worry about it. Your uncle would be pleased too.
Mom, Deanna, Garrett, thank you so much. I've caused trouble for you too.
Not at all. We just did what we wanted to do.
Finally, I feel like everything has cleared up and life is returning to normal. Afterward, it turned out Catherine was involved in various other fraudulent activities and ended up getting arrested by the police. Polly came crying to me soon after, but since Matt had warned him repeatedly, I decided to keep my distance. The commotion seemed to have spread rumors to Polly's company, and now he's been demoted, working at a subsidiary. As for me, I continue with my part-time work, living a peaceful life. This pearl you gave me, it helped me through this ordeal. Perhaps there's really power in the things our loved ones leave behind. Despite getting wrapped up in various issues, this experience made me realize the supportive people and warmth around me. From now on, I plan to live my remaining life never forgetting to be grateful for each day.
You know, dealing with poor people is such a waste of time. I'll only bother with you if I have time left over.
Laughed and made a shooing gesture, sending us away. Even I, who usually tries to be kind to others, had reached my breaking point. Then my son, who had been listening to the conversation, said to me loudly enough for Michael to hear,
I wonder if I withdraw the 1 billion yen I have deposited, can I shut this place down? Haha.
My name is Susan Parker, a 67-year-old housewife. Lately, my husband George and I have been enjoying leisurely afternoons at cafes. George is 2 years younger than me and has just recently retired.
I've been so focused on work that I don't know what to do with my free time now.
So I took my husband out to explore various shops. We both love coffee, and we'd always wanted to go on a cafe tour. George didn't complain about my cafe hopping idea and even seemed to become more and more interested in it.
Hey, let's try this cafe next time,
George said, while glued to the screen watching a TV show featuring cafes. Eventually, he started making coffee himself, and our home became filled with the delicious aroma of coffee brewed by him.
Dad's coffee's really good. I told you, it's all about the beans.
When our son James came home for a visit, George served him coffee, and James expressed his appreciation while savoring it. James is now 38 years old and has been independent for a long time, occasionally coming home and sharing interesting work stories.
Are you and Dad doing well? No changes?
Yes, we're the same as always.
That's good to hear, but you're getting older, so take care of yourselves. Don't underestimate us just yet, even at retirement age. We're still going strong. Dad, you really are full of energy.
Spending such peaceful and carefree time with my husband and son makes me very happy. Looking back, my husband and I rarely fought, and I don't think our son ever went through a rebellious phase. My husband and I met during our college days. We were in the same department and saw each other often in class. Eventually, he asked me out, and we started dating. Being with him always made me feel calm and truly happy. Our relationship continued even after we both started working, and a few years later, we got married. Our married life was also full of happiness. For the first few years after we got married, we thought we might not be able to have children. But then our son was born. Our newborn son was so cute and looked just like an angel. I remember my husband being overjoyed when he held our child for the first time. Since then, the three of us have lived happily together. Our son grew up to be a kind and good-hearted person. Although my husband and I both worked, and might have made him feel lonely at times, I think he grew up without any real trouble in his teen years.
Mom, Dad, there's something I want to do. I have a favor to ask.
Our son decided on his path early and pursued it with determination. We supported him wholeheartedly. Watching him achieve his dreams and goals was cool, and we felt proud as parents. Even after becoming an adult, he always cared about us, taking us on trips and to fancy restaurants. As we got older and more emotional, my husband and I would cry and thank him, only to be laughed at for being dramatic. Later, our son married a wonderful woman. My husband and I were overjoyed by their marriage.
I have a kind wife who always supports me in my busy work life. That's why I want to work hard to protect our family.
Our daughter-in-law has a lovely smile and a gentle personality, perfect for our ambitious son. The couple continued to visit us regularly, and we always enjoyed our time together. However, my husband recently began having health problems. As our son had warned, We needed to take care of ourselves, so we went to the hospital together. There, we received shocking news from the doctor.
It's terminal cancer. You have about a year left to live.
Both my husband and I were stunned. We had planned to spend lots of leisurely time together as a couple. We even talked about opening a small cafe at our own pace. We despaired at the reality we faced.
I can't believe it. Dad has cancer?
Our son was also deeply shocked by the situation.
We don't have children yet, and I was just thinking about showing you your grandchild soon.
We were heartbroken, but we knew the hardest part was for my husband himself. He was hospitalized and began cancer treatment. How is the treatment going? Is it painful?
I'm fine. I might even beat cancer if I keep going like this, right? Haha.
He's trying to act strong, but the treatment must be incredibly tough. His face has become gaunt, and his body is getting thinner.
Susan, I'm sorry I might leave you behind and die first.
What are you talking about? You still have more than half a year left, according to your doctor. We never know, you might live even longer. We have to keep our hopes up and stay positive.
Yeah, but I just wanted to apologize in advance. I could pass away at any moment now.
Don't say that. My husband seemed to be feeling quite weak mentally.
I see, so Dad is feeling like that.
Our son wanted to do something for his father who was feeling weak.
I want to grant Dad's wish before he's unable to go out anymore.
Yeah, let's ask him about it. Encouraged by our son, I asked my husband indirectly, if you could go out right now, where would you like to go? We probably can't get permission for an overnight stay, but maybe we can go out for a short time.
Oh, I know. There's a hot spring a few hours from here by car.
A hot spring?
There's a cafe nearby that serves delicious coffee.
Oh, really? I couldn't help but smile. My husband really loved coffee and cafes. Let's go to the hot spring and have some delicious coffee. When I said that, my husband looked delighted.
I hope the doctor will give us permission.
Afterward, I asked the doctor if we could get permission for a brief outing. The doctor agreed, saying that my husband's condition was stable for now. So we went on a family trip for the first time in a while. It was only a day trip, but it was wonderful to go out together as a family. Our son drove the car, and the four of us, my husband, our son, and his wife, headed to the hot spring and cafe. The large outdoor bath at the hot spring had a great view, and the weather was perfect, making it an amazing experience. At the cafe, we heard that the men's bath also had a fantastic view and was a wondrous hot spring. We finally had the coffee we'd been looking forward to, and it was so delicious that it moved us.
I'm glad we could all enjoy this delicious coffee together. Thank you so much. I'll do my best in my treatment from now on.
My husband said this to us with a gentle smile. I thought it was good to bring them here when I saw both my son and husband happy. And then, 1 week later, my husband's condition suddenly worsened, and he passed on to the next world. Why did you pass away so soon? I was so sad that I couldn't help it. Even though he had endured such painful cancer treatments and had become well enough to get permission to go out, our son couldn't stop his tears either. We were so down that we were useless, so our daughter-in-law took care of arranging and preparing the funeral for us. I'm really grateful because I think we wouldn't have been able to hold the funeral properly without her. And we were able to send off my husband safely. Many people attended the funeral, and it was clear that my husband was well loved. He often said he wanted to open a cafe with his wife recently. Yes, that's right. He was also very enthusiastic about studying how to brew coffee, the types of beans and roasting. As I talked with the people who attended the funeral, I remembered the days when my husband was happy to brew coffee, and tears welled up again. And then, I wanted to fulfill our dream together with my husband.
Mom,
You're going to open a cafe? After the funeral settled down, my son and his wife visited our house. Yes, I want to make your father's dream come true.
I think it's a great idea. I'll support you with all my strength if there's anything I can do.
Thank you. I don't know the first thing about business, so I'm really grateful for your cooperation. And so I asked my son to come with me, and we went to consult with the local credit union about financing. It was so crowded in the morning. My son and I sat on the sofa with our waiting numbers and waited for our turn. And after about an hour of waiting, we went to the counter.
Welcome, please have a seat.
The bank teller who greeted us sat down and was named Michael.
What can I help you with today?
Well, I'm thinking of opening a cafe soon. I came to talk about financing.
Financing, you say?
As soon as I said that, Michael's face suddenly turned stern.
In order to hear your story in detail, we will also conduct an interview. Can you please wait on the sofa until we're ready? We'll call you when we're ready.
Understood. Although I was worried about why his face had become so stern, I returned to the sofa as I was told and waited with my son for our turn. However, even though we waited and waited, there was no sign of being called. Before we knew it, 3 hours had passed. People who arrived later than us were being called, and we thought it was strange. That bank clerk named Michael is attending to other customers as if he has forgotten about us. I thought I should call out to him. The moment Michael finished with a customer, I hurried over to him. Excuse me, I've been waiting for a while now. When can we have a meeting about the loan?
Are you still here?
Huh? What do you mean?
There's no way we can lend money for a cafe or any shop run by an old person like you, right? You're not even wearing brand name clothes, and you don't look rich at all, do you? It's a waste of time dealing with poor people. I'll help you if I have time left at the end.
Saying so, Michael laughed and made a shooing gesture at us. That's unbelievable. I, who usually live by being kind to others, reached my limit of patience.
What's wrong, Mom?
My son returned from the restroom just as Michael said those things to me. I was so angry that I told my son what had happened. Upon hearing the story, my son said in a loud voice so Michael could hear.
If I withdraw the 1 billion yen I deposited, I wonder, can I shut this place down? What?
Michael looked puzzled at my son's remark.
Sir, if you're going to cause a disturbance, please leave, as it's bothering other customers.
I can't believe the nerve of this Michael to say such a thing to my son. And my son said,
I just moved my business deposit to this bank recently, but I guess that was a mistake. Call the branch manager because I can't talk to you. Stop it. I'll sue you for obstructing business.
Michael refused my son's business and snapped back. It seems even my son had reached his limit of patience.
Then I'll call directly.
My son said so and made a phone call somewhere. Then the branch manager came running out of a back room in the bank.
Mr. Johnson, what happened?
Seeing the manager rush over and speak to my son, Michael's eyes widened in surprise.
Branch manager, what's going on with this bank? This Michael clerk made my mother wait for over 3 hours, calling her a poor person and tried to send her away. What? Michael, what the hell are you doing? Mr. Johnson, could you please come to the reception room? Let me apologize.
We decided to follow the branch manager as it seemed we were causing a disturbance to other customers. When we arrived at the reception room, the branch manager prostrated himself and apologized.
I'm truly sorry about this. Michael just transferred from another bank. We also didn't have a deep relationship with you yet, and our other staff members were too busy to notice. It's fine, manager. I'm not asking you to be treated specially. I just want you to take proper action regarding how he treated my mother and judged her based on her appearance. Of course. Michael, hurry up and apologize. This person is the owner, chef of a famous restaurant. They just opened a new store in this area and deposited 1 billion yen in our branch. Huh?
Told by the branch manager, Michael turned pale and prostrated himself to apologize.
I'm so sorry. Michael, have you always treated customers differently based on your own judgment? If so, you're disqualified as a bank employee or even someone in the service industry. At the very least, we don't want to do any transactions here anymore. No, I mean. Mr. Johnson, could you please reconsider?
The branch manager pleaded with my son.
Unfortunately, we can't trust this bank as it is. Show your sincerity and then we can talk. If you can't do that, I'll withdraw all of my deposits by the end of this month.
My son said so and took me out of the bank. A week later, the branch manager called my son. According to the conversation, the bank conducted a detailed investigation on Michael and found that he had been turning away customers who came for loans based on his own judgment. Moreover, it was revealed that he had also embezzled the bank's money. Of course, Michael was fired. The branch manager called my son several times to apologize and propose various favorable terms for my loan. My son felt the manager's sincerity and decided not to withdraw the deposits. Thanks to the manager's proposal, I was able to receive a loan at a very good rate. The preparation for opening my store went smoothly, and I finally opened it. Initially, I had planned to open a coffee shop, but my daughter-in-law had a nutritionist certification. So we decided to open a cafe with healthy and nutritious menus together. Of course, we inherited my husband's passion for coffee and offered delicious coffee as well. My son also supported the store from behind the scenes, and thanks to him, I was able to stock famous coffee beans. The store is thriving, thankfully, and has become popular among female customers for its delicious coffee and food. I don't know how much longer I can work, but I'll do my best to run the cafe for my husband's sake as well. Narrator's thoughts. Do bank employees like this still exist nowadays? It's the worst to blatantly change your attitude depending on the customer. And there's no redemption for embezzling money. I'm glad the protagonist was able to open the store safely. I thought the son was very cool. Please continue to live a fun life, working hard at the store, and maintaining a good family relationship. Thank you for watching until the end. If you like, please subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video.
I'm just saying it like it is. You shouldn't be rude to others, you know. My name is Emma. I'm a 30-year-old working professional. I can't complain about my married life with Ethan, who's great at sharing the household chores. However, the thorn in my side has always been my mother-in-law and her daughter Emily, who live close by. My mother-in-law has been on her own since her husband, my father-in-law, passed away a few years ago, and now she and Emily live together. While mother-in-law works part-time, Emily has a full-time job. Emily is 37, single, and so similar to her mom in both looks and temperament that you might mistake one for the other from behind. Both of them are especially fond of my husband, who's the youngest and the only son in the family, so they're usually tough on me. From the moment we visited their home to announce our engagement, it was clear that neither mother-in-law nor Emily were my biggest fans. At that point, I was already hesitant about having to interact with them in the future, and was wondering if my love for Ethan would be enough to deal with it. However, I took the plunge into marriage because Ethan promised to always be there for me. Right after we got married, it became a weekly ritual to visit the in-laws where mother-in-law and Emily would ignore me as if I didn't exist, all the while acting as if they were enjoying a perfect, family-only gathering. After enduring this for about 3 months, I had reached my breaking point. One day, I grabbed Ethan's arm and dragged him to the front door, shooting a glare at mother-in-law and Emily, who were following us, shouting. We left their house, and once we were safely away, I broke down in tears and told Ethan how deeply their actions were affecting me. Ethan, bless his heart, hadn't even noticed the emotional bullying because he's such a laid-back and carefree person. His attempts to placate me without understanding the core issues only made me angrier, and I gave him the silent treatment for the rest of the day. The next evening, Ethan came home late from work and immediately bowed his head in apology. Apparently, after discussing last night's events with his coworkers, they were unanimous in their disapproval and gave him a bit of scolding during lunch. He admitted that at first, he was surprised everyone was siding with me, but after listening to their opinions, he began to see that his mom and sister were indeed out of line. Feeling grateful for the enlightenment from Ethan's coworkers, I reflected on the possibility that I hadn't been the most mature person in the situation either. Then Ethan picked up the phone to call his mother. The last time my husband yelled, "Emma is an important person who joined our family, so don't you dare disrespect her," I had a newfound respect for him. Mother-in-law and Emily said that they wanted to apologize, but honestly, I would rather they just left me alone. However, respecting my husband's feelings, who understood mine, I reluctantly accepted their apologies. For appearances, we made up. All was quiet for a while until my husband got an invitation from mother-in-law to go out for dinner. I wasn't thrilled about it, but agreed to go anyway. When we met mother-in-law and Emily after a long time, they seemed overly cheerful. But the moment my husband went to the restroom, Emily said, "Oh, you're here too? Even though you're an outsider? I told my brother today was a family-only dinner." And then mother-in-law chimed in, "Oh really? An outsider is here? Well, what's done is done. Mom, if you say things like that, you'll get scolded by Ethan again. It sounds like we're harassing her. Emma, sorry. We just say what's on our mind. Don't mind us." Emily smirked, just like her mother. They were ignoring me like I was invisible just a short time ago. Now this? I've learned that people who claim to be frank are usually the opposite. Mother-in-law and Emily kept emphasizing the word outsider, clearly unhappy about being reprimanded by my husband. Ah, a change in tactics, I see. I quickly understood their intent. If they can't ignore me, they'll use their words to push me away. Whether they had a strategy meeting or were in sync, this mother-daughter duo was very much alike. On the dinner table, mother-in-law, Emily, and my husband had matching bowls and chopsticks, while I was given worn-out dishes and disposable chopsticks. "Sorry, we thought this was a family-only dinner, so we didn't prepare for outsiders," mother-in-law said, forcing a smile. My husband sharply retorted, "Mom, did you forget to prepare for Emma, or is this intentional?" Caught off guard, mother-in-law stammered, I just forgot to buy it." Quickly, Emily also apologized, but the moment my husband turned away, she glared at me. As we began eating, Emily suddenly stood up and announced, "I have some news today. I'm getting married." Seeing the surprise on my face and my husband's, mother-in-law gleefully said, "He's such a wonderful person, you know. He's got an impressive job, so I thought it's fine to approve of this relationship." It was as if she was bragging about her own love life. Emily's boyfriend is a salesman from a company that her office deals with. He was charmed by Emily's efficiency at work and asked her out. In reality, Emily is a career woman who looks good in a suit. At first glance, she appears to be highly talented, so the story seems believable. "I've never had issues getting married, you know," Emily continued. "It's just that my personality is so straightforward, almost masculine, that guys are intimidated by me. Oh, I'm so jealous of Emma. Emma is, you know, the type guys want to protect. Like she can't live without a man. She just radiates that vibe. Ethan has always been weak for that type, so I'm really jealous. I don't have a manipulative bone in my body." Emily went on, "He's the type who can see the real me, you know? He thinks I'm cool. Right, Mom?" "Absolutely," mother-in-law chimed in. "And besides, he's not the type to tattle on my son with paranoid accusations, so I can relax. When you get married, I'll move in with you, of course." As joyous and celebratory as they were, mother-in-law and Emily didn't miss a beat in belittling me. I was so taken aback that I was at a loss for words. Mother-in-law then added, "Our family is growing again. Ethan, you should come back too. Life is better when it's just family." Emily quickly replied, "Mom, that's terrible. But you, Ethan, and I can say anything because we're family. But Emma is an outsider. It's rude to say such things." To which mother-in-law also said, "You're right. It's rude to an outsider. Sorry." I was so frustrated I had to fight back tears. Just then, my husband calmly put down his chopsticks and muttered, "This family is messed up." He stood up, ignored mother-in-law and Emily who tried to follow us, left his parents' home, and put me in the car. Inside the car, my husband said, "I'm really sorry." "As long as you understand, that's all that matters," I replied. I couldn't meet his gaze, and tears followed. Several nights later, mother-in-law and Emily showed up at our doorstep unannounced. "I'm so sorry. I know it's irrational, but I felt like you stole my son. And that just got under my skin. Please forgive me." "I'm sorry too. I have a soft spot for my younger brother, and I took it out on you," they both said, bowing deeply in apology at our front door. Confused by the sudden turn of events, I looked over at my husband, who seemed just as bewildered as I was. I couldn't shake the feeling that they had some ulterior motive, so I wasn't ready to forgive and forget so quickly. "If something like this happens again, I don't think I'll be able to forgive you," I warned them. "We get it, we really do," they both echoed, bowing their heads once more. Even after mother-in-law and Emily left, I felt uneasy, but my husband looked relieved. Looks like they finally get it. If only that were true. Maybe Emily's upcoming wedding changed her. Perhaps, once she's a daughter-in-law too, she'll get where I'm coming from and make an effort to get along. Trying to convince myself, I pushed down my lingering doubts. Turns out, all my concerns were unwarranted. Mother-in-law and Emily became noticeably nicer to me. When Emily introduced her fiancé, the dinner went off without a hitch. No passive-aggressive comments or anything. Her fiancé seemed as genuine as Emily claimed, a really good guy. Thinking her change of heart might be his influence, I genuinely celebrated her upcoming wedding. Then, mother-in-law asked for my help preparing meals for my father-in-law's memorial service, where many relatives would gather. I would have dreaded this before, but I felt differently about my in-laws now and agreed to stay overnight for cleanup. The morning of the event, I felt a slight headache and some chills. I had no fever, but I didn't want to risk spreading a cold, so I consulted with mother-in-law. She urged me to come, promising she'd also take precautions, so I headed over. When I got there, nearly 20 relatives had gathered. After the memorial service, my husband got called back to work due to some emergency. He left in a hurry, and I stayed at my in-laws' home, serving tea and snacks to guests. The post-service dinner was lively. I was bustling around, carrying drinks and food, and doing the dishes. When I glanced around the living room, I noticed my mother-in-law deep in conversation with relatives her own age. Emily, meanwhile, was busy with her phone and had disappeared into her room. Several female relatives on my father-in-law's side helped out, but neither my mother-in-law nor Emily lifted a finger. By the time it got dark, the party was over and the relatives left, although a few of the men had passed out from too much drinking. I was alone in the quiet living room, cleaning up in the kitchen. I had been too busy to think about it earlier, but my headache and chill from the morning had come back. I started to feel dizzy and thought about calling it a night and going home. Just then, my mother-in-law and Emily came into the living room. The moment our eyes met, my mother-in-law said, "Oh, you're still here? You're not very efficient, are you?" She continued, "Well, why don't you just go home? You've been itching to leave, haven't you? The rest is family time. Ethan will be back soon, and we don't need outsiders like you around." "What do you mean?" As I asked, Emily started laughing. "You still don't get it, do you? You're just a maid here. How funny. Ethan is part of my and my mom's family, not yours. But hey, you've been entertaining. We'll call you again to be our maid." Confused by Emily's contradictions, I asked, "If I'm an outsider, then what does that make your fiancé?" Emily retorted, "What? He's family because I chose him. Just because you're not wanted here doesn't mean he's an outsider. Seriously? You're so clueless." Rolling her eyes, my mother-in-law chimed in, "We've told you can go. Why don't you take those drunk guys with you on your way out?" She gestured with her hand as if shooing me away. This is the third time this has happened. I was livid, both at myself for being deceived twice, and at the two of them. The urge to throw whatever was close to me overwhelmed me. Yet, I was so dizzy I couldn't speak, and their mocking faces looked distorted. Feeling my body temperature rise rapidly, I stopped cleaning and stormed out of my in-laws' house. Only a few steps out, I started feeling extremely dizzy, and my knees gave out. I collapsed right there. That's when Susan, a neighbor I'd seen a few times, rushed over frantically. "Hey, are you okay?" She cradled me and spoke to me. In my fading consciousness, I muttered, "Please, mother-in-law, Emily, let me rest, and then blacked out. I thought I heard her scream, but then I lost consciousness and I don't remember what happened next. When I woke up, I was in a hospital bed. Susan had called an ambulance in a panic, and people from the neighborhood had gathered around my in-laws' house. Apparently, I had a fever close to 104 degrees Fahrenheit, and it was said that it could have been much worse had help arrived any later. Turning to my husband, who was crying by my bedside, I asked, "Who's your family?" And then I went back to sleep. After being discharged, my husband and I visited my in-laws' house at my request. I had made up my mind during my recovery. Mother-in-law yelled at me, "You ruined your father-in-law's memorial service," but I was calm. I told my husband, "This is the third time they've harassed me. I can't take it anymore. What do you want to do? If you can't cut ties with your mother and sister, then we should go our separate ways. Who's your family?" Without hesitation, he said it was me. Mother-in-law and Emily were momentarily shocked, but Emily, "Who's your family? That's laughable. Don't worry, Ethan will come to his senses and come back. Right, Mom?" Mother-in-law also laughed, but my husband stood up and declared, "That day will never come." He held my hand tightly, and we left my in-laws' house behind. I went to Susan's house to thank her for taking care of me on the way home. On my way, everyone I met said, "Are you okay? You've been through a lot." For a moment, I was puzzled, but figured the incident must have created quite a stir in the neighborhood. Susan greeted me with a smile and eagerly shared some news. She told me that the moment I was taken away in the ambulance, rumors spread like wildfire about my in-laws being terrible people who were overworking their sick daughter-in-law. Now, nobody even greets my mother-in-law and Emily. "And guess what? The story that I saved your life has also spread. Isn't that something?" she said, laughing. From her tone and lively expression, I was certain she was the one who'd spread the rumors. She's probably recounting it like some kind of heroic tale. Actually, in that moment when I was losing consciousness, I felt like it was my only chance to expose mother-in-law and Emily. So I made my stand. The truth is, I simply left because they told me to, but since I was really sick, karma hit them in the most unexpected way. But in reality, they must have been really shocked when they saw me collapse in front of them, still wearing my apron. I felt immensely grateful towards Susan. Oddly enough, despite being ignored by the neighbors, mother-in-law and Emily seemed to act as if nothing had changed. I found it puzzling, but decided it didn't matter since I didn't need to understand them anymore. I thanked Susan and headed home. By the time I was feeling better, my husband suggested we move since we might continue to be harassed if we stayed close. I immediately agreed, happy with his decision. Just when I thought it was all over, something more surprising happened. As we were preparing for the move, the doorbell rang. Standing there was Emily's fiancé, bowing his head through the monitor. We invited him in. After taking a deep breath, he said that the engagement was off. Then he slowly began to explain why. Apparently, a few weeks after the memorial service, Emily visited his house in tears, claiming she was being misunderstood by the neighbors due to false accusations from her sister-in-law. And then, she and her mother moved into his place. Emily couldn't handle any household chores, leaving it all to her mother. But that wasn't the worst of it. My mother-in-law followed them around everywhere, constantly offering unsolicited advice while never contributing financially. She even planned to tag along on their honeymoon. It didn't stop there. Whenever Emily stepped away, her mother-in-law would make cutesy voices at her fiancé and cozy up to him. Fed up with their behavior, the fiancé called off the engagement. Initially, Emily and her mother-in-law threatened legal action. That's when the former fiancé of Emily's, David, stepped in. My parents did some digging, and it seems you've both been lying to me. If you're planning to sue, we will expose all your past behaviors in the appropriate setting. We will also talk to my brother and his wife, he said. Faced with this, Emily and her mother-in-law were at a loss for words. Hearing this story, I finally understood why they were so brazen that day. They probably thought getting married would absolve them of any of the local gossip. Emily had already quit her job, dreaming of a blissful married life. With the engagement off, she tried to get her job back. "The company can't run without me," she often boasted, expecting a warm welcome. However, her return was flatly denied. This is what I heard from her coworkers, David continued. I had thought Emily was a high-achieving professional woman, but she was anything but. She made frequent mistakes and had no self-awareness, often blaming her colleagues. Pretending to be carefree, Emily often made insensitive remarks and was cruel to younger female staff behind their backs. When Emily showed up and asked for her job back, the victims spoke out one after another. A small Me Too movement erupted at the office, leading to Emily leaving the company in a fit of rage. After listening to the whole story, my husband said, "If your mother and sister are asking for compensation in the divorce case, I'll be happy to assist." But David immediately shook his head. No, I just came to say hello. I've heard you've been through a lot too. Glad you're doing better." We both deeply bowed our heads to David. Word around town is that mother-in-law and Emily are still living together in the same house, but apparently they're not getting along anymore. "Kicked out of the company, and you're still useless." "Trying to seduce my boyfriend, you old hag!" They're constantly yelling at each other, I hear. We'd finished our move and even changed our phone numbers, so we were relaxed, perhaps too much so. Suddenly, we heard that Emily showed up at my husband's office. It was during lunch break, so he took her to a nearby diner. Right as she sat down, she started complaining. "Moving without telling us? That's so unfair," and then began to badmouth me, mother-in-law, and her ex-fiancé. She even said, "I'm sick of that home. Let me move in with you." Of course, he immediately refused. Emily persisted. "Emma just doesn't get it. I'm pretty easygoing. We'll understand each other eventually." To which my husband responded, "My family consists of Emma. You're an outsider." As Emily began to retort, looking frustrated, my husband interrupted, "If you show up again, I'll call the police. Tell your mother as well," and quickly left to go back to work. I was so relieved that my husband stood firm against Emily that I hugged him from behind without thinking. It seems mother-in-law and Emily will continue to yell at each other while remaining inseparable bad buddies, and I quietly swore to myself to protect my own family.
Cheated on again, huh? Those harsh words were thrown at me by my best friend June as I sat despondently. Don't say again. But it is again. How many times now? You were cheated on the last time, and the time before that too, right? Indeed, I was the girl who kept getting cheated on by her boyfriend. Always, I'd start dating because I was asked to, but in the end, I'd be cheated on and discarded. Perhaps it was my fickle nature, but if someone asked me to date them, I'd generally fall for them. So, getting cheated on was always incredibly painful. Why do I always get cheated on? Then June replied with a dumbfounded look, "Well, you're so indifferent that it's no wonder you're cheated on. When I'm dating, I'm all excited, but I don't want people to know that or to show that I like the person I'm dating, so I always end up acting detached. You know, if you don't do something about it, your life will be nothing but work, right?" At her words, I held my head in my hands. My name is Melissa. I'm a 29-year-old office worker. Yes, 29 years old. I want to tell my 21-year-old self, who at her birthday party was saying things like, "I'll be married by the latter half of my 20s, and by the time I'm 30, I'll have 2 kids," about my current situation. I loved the boyfriend I was dating at the time and thought we would get married, but he cheated on me and dumped me a year later. I'm bored being with you. Bored? What are all the other girlfriends in the world like? No matter how many times I thought about it, I just didn't get it. After that, I had boyfriends who cheated on me. Some relationships didn't even last 3 months. Looking back, the boyfriend I dated when I was 20, with whom I was together for more than a year, was the longest relationship I had. June, who knew all about this and had been my best friend since high school, had met someone wonderful. Married at 27, now had a child, and was apparently going to have another one next year. The life I had imagined was June's. During this time, my coworkers were excitedly planning a blind date. A blind date, huh? I wondered if it was possible to find a good match in such a situation. Well, most of my colleagues were around the same age as me, so I understood their urgency, comrades. Then, one of them called out to me, "Hey, Melissa, you should come too." "I don't want to go on a blind date." "But you just broke up with your boyfriend, right?" She hit me where it hurts. I had only told my colleagues that I had broken up with my boyfriend. I didn't want it to get around the office that I was the girl who kept getting cheated on. With that thought, I unusually decided to participate in the blind date. Nevertheless, I didn't feel particularly enthusiastic. On the day of the blind date, I was dressed as usual, wearing my regular makeup, while the others in the group had put on nicer clothes and had done their makeup perfectly. So this is what a blind date is all about. I watched the scene as if it was someone else's business. The blind date was a stylish restaurant. When we arrived, 5 men were already seated. After ordering drinks and toasting, another man walked in. He was oddly disheveled, wearing a crumpled shirt and black-rimmed glasses. To put it kindly, he didn't seem suited for a blind date. Well, I'm not one to talk. After a while, a man approached me. "I've fallen for you, Melissa. Let's exchange contact info." No matter how you looked at him, he seemed like a casual guy. As I hesitated, thinking that this was a bit too much, the man sat down next to me and tried to forcefully take my phone. "Hey, could you please stop?" I had to try to gently decline, but my words came out more stern than I had intended. Everyone was absorbed in their own conversations, paying no attention to me. Then suddenly, a man grabbed my arm. "Don't push it. They won't like it." It was the man in the crumpled shirt who had arrived late. His name, apparently, was Ricky. I thanked him, and he pushed up his glasses, shook his head, and without a word, sat across from me. He had a hard-to-read demeanor. As the party started to wind down, people who had paired off started to leave, and those going to the after-party also left. In the end, it was just Ricky and me. We ended up walking together to the subway station, mostly in silence. Ricky seemed to be a quiet person. When I asked him where his stop was, it turned out to be the station next to mine. What a coincidence! Ricky pushed his glasses up and offered to walk me home, but his expression was so neutral that I could tell he was just being polite. I declined and got off the subway before him. The next day, my coworkers were excitedly discussing the previous night. "Melissa, what happened with you and Mr. Crumpled Shirt?" "Mr. Crumpled Shirt. Because his shirt was crumpled. Oh, Ricky." I inwardly rolled my eyes. "Nothing happened. We were going in the same direction, so we just walked together." "Well, with that outfit, it's no surprise," a coworker chimed in. But I didn't particularly care. About a week later, while stopping by a bookstore to buy some comics on my way home from work, I ran into Ricky. "Huh?" We looked at each other. He lives at the next station, and this is the largest bookstore in the area. It's not surprising to bump into him. But still, what a coincidence. Plus, we'd picked up the same comic book. "Huh?" We realized this at the same moment. We both naturally said the same thing and laughed. "Would you like to grab a bite?" I had been thinking about picking up some prepared food at the nearby supermarket, so I readily accepted Ricky's invitation. And yes, Ricky was still Mr. Crumpled Shirt. I suggested a family restaurant, and we moved to a nearby location. Ricky, who hadn't said much during our previous encounter, was more talkative today. I found myself smiling often and realized he was both a good speaker and listener. When I told him this, Ricky pushed his glasses up and averted his gaze. Did I say something wrong? Since then, Ricky and I occasionally went out for meals or drinks. Ricky was the same age as me, worked at a startup, and enjoyed reading comics and going for drives. Information I hadn't known about him at the blind date suddenly came flooding in. Ricky was interesting, and we clicked. But then something started bothering me. Hey, Ricky, do you have a girlfriend? He pushed up his glasses and hastily responded, If I had one, I wouldn't be going on blind dates. I guess that makes sense, but I felt surprisingly relieved at his response. Wait, do I like Ricky? No, we're just friends. The day after going out for drinks with Ricky, my coworkers approached me. When did you two start dating? Huh? Their question made me blurt out a weird sound. What were they thinking about? You're dating Mr. Crumpled Shirt, aren't you? Oh, Ricky. No. We just happened to live nearby, and we bumped into each other and went for drinks, that's all. Upon hearing my words, my coworker started to laugh. Oh, okay, that makes sense. There's no way such a lame guy would be your boyfriend. One by one, they began making fun of Ricky's appearance. For some reason, I was seething. Before I knew it, I was shouting, Hey, it's not about looks. Ricky is a really great guy. My coworkers uncomfortably slinked back to their desks. That night, I called my best friend June and told her about it. You're totally in love with him, she said, laughing as she spoke up for my feelings. Indeed, I had come to this realization today at the office. I didn't like it when people made fun of him. Is it really like that? But confessing my feelings is terrifying. I don't care either way, but don't blame me if you regret it. With those words, I started leaning towards confessing. But is his income okay? His clothes are always ragged, aren't they? I knew he worked for a startup, but I didn't know about his earnings. But I knew, just by the fact that he was working, he was decent. Well, he seems to have a job, and compared to my unemployed ex-boyfriends... Yes, having had relationships with several people, just the fact that he was working made him seem like a fine person to me. Thinking about those unemployed guys who cheated, I can't forgive them. If you say so, Melissa, I can only tell you to go for it. With June's words, I decided to invite Ricky for a meal. For the first time, I invited Ricky to dinner on the weekend. It's the first time we would meet during the day. Then, because it was his day off, he suggested going for a drive instead. I remember him saying driving was one of his hobbies, so I agreed to let him pick me up in his car on the day. It felt almost like a date. And then the weekend arrived. I was waiting at the entrance of my apartment building when a white car pulled up. It was Ricky. I had imagined an old or compact, inexpensive-looking car, so I was surprised to see a car of considerable value. Oh, maybe he spends his small salary on his car. That's why he doesn't have money for clothes. I was satisfied with my own conclusions. The drive with Ricky was fun. Thanks to that, I almost forgot my main mission. I had completely forgotten until we reached my apartment. The moment he parked in front of my building, I turned to Ricky. I like you. Please go out with me. Ricky pushed his glasses up and said, "Thank you." Then there was a silence. What does that mean? I want him to say something. Does he mean yes or no? I was staring at Ricky's face in surprise. Is this the pattern of a rejection? I said, "I'm sorry," lowered my head and got out of the car and dashed into the apartment building. Men are all the same. As I was soaking my pillow with tears, a message from Ricky arrived. The message read, "Please take care of me from now on." What? What was that silence earlier then? What was that about? With joy and anger mixing, I was thrown into a strange high. And so we started dating and decided to get married just before I turned 30. My co-workers ridiculed me endlessly. "Are you sure you're okay with a guy like that? Won't you struggle financially?" But I just wanted to be with the person I loved. He asked me to wait for a bit for the wedding ceremony, so we decided to register our marriage first and start looking for a new home soon. I want a child, and to prepare for that, I'm thinking we need to save money to some degree. Since I can't be too picky about our living arrangements for now, I suggested an apartment that looked good online for $900 a month. It's a bit small, but it's good enough, right? Oh, I wonder if the noise will echo if we have a kid and we're on the second floor. As I was looking at the property, I muttered these thoughts without even realizing it. Suddenly, Ricky said something astonishing. "Should we just buy a house then?" What? What on earth was he talking about? I didn't earn that much, did I? My mind raced through all the possibilities. Could it be some marriage scam, or was he planning to trick me into taking out a loan? No surprise my mind jumped there, given my history of being cheated on. But then Ricky said, "You think I'm poor, don't you, Melissa? You must assume I don't have any money since I spent it all on my car." His statement hit the nail on the head. But it didn't matter. I wanted to marry him. Overwhelmed by my feelings, I blurted out, "That's fine, I'll work. That's all we need, right? So let's buy a house." At this, Ricky burst into laughter, leaving me puzzled. I was utterly perplexed by the situation. "Hey, just so you know, I'm the CEO." Time froze for me in that moment. Seconds later, I found myself shouting in surprise, a sound so loud that I wanted to cover my own ears. "But your clothes, your belongings, they don't look expensive at all." I used to wear branded stuff, but I was surrounded by people attracted by my wealth. I don't like those who expect me to lavish them with money, and when they realize I won't, they turn on me. That's why I dress like this. Besides, I honestly lack a sense of fashion. Finally, I understood Ricky's perspective. "So don't worry about anything. Will you marry me?" Ricky pushed up his glasses as he asked this. I would later find out that this was his habit when he felt shy. A few months later, we had our wedding. The only reason we waited to have the wedding was because Ricky's grandmother was in the hospital with an injury, and he wanted to wait until she was discharged. I laughed at my own assumption of marriage fraud. There was none of that. My co-workers, upon learning of Ricky's true identity, were envious. "If I knew he was like this, I would have gone for him." Right? You'd never think that someone dressed so unfashionably would be a CEO. "Melissa, you played your cards right." I wasn't sure if they were envious or mocking, but I put my foot down. I would have married him even if he were poor. It's about the person inside, not the money. Perhaps because of the comfort of being loved, I was able to respond with a bright smile. By the way, at our wedding, Ricky took off his usual black-rimmed glasses. He was astonishingly handsome, reminiscent of a movie star. He apparently wore the glasses because he didn't want to be told that he looked like that actor. June came to the wedding and congratulated us. Now I'm living just as Ricky suggested. I bought a house and continue to work. Ricky's fashion sense is a work in progress, but his attractive face and good physique make even inexpensive clothes look good on him. Lately, he swapped his black rimmed glasses for contact lenses or rimless glasses, and seems to be paying more attention to fashion. Although I've been cheated on in all my past relationships, I feel secure this time, because I truly love him. We naturally dote on and support each other. Let's build a happy family with Ricky. Forever.
I'm Elizabeth, 35 years old. I recently got married and I'm juggling work and household chores. My husband, Joseph, is a year older than me. And he's not only calm and kind, but also someone I can rely on. We work at the same company, and since we were once in a senior-junior relationship, we know each other's strengths and weaknesses. After getting married, Joseph and I moved in with my parents. Our family home is 2 stories and has many rooms. It's hard for my parents to manage the house alone, so we decided to live together and help my mother. My father and Joseph both work for major companies, and since they have business dealings, they're quite familiar with each other. I was worried that Joseph might get tired or feel awkward, but surprisingly, he gets along well with my father, and they often enjoy drinks together. After we started living as a family of 4, I began to help my mother with the housework, and I found some extra time, so I started a simple work-from-home job. I was thoroughly enjoying my peaceful married life. Then, one day, my brother Robert came home with his wife, Mary. They both looked tired, and we all warmly welcomed them. Our apartment burned down in a fire. Are you okay? It happened while we were out during the day, so no one was injured. Even the guy who was smoking in bed only suffered minor injuries. Everyone was relieved at my brother's words. But here's where the real story begins. Actually, we had our savings in the closet and it all burned up. We got the fire insurance, but it's still scary in an apartment where others might start a fire. We want to live in the single-family home. There's room to spare, right? Indeed, when I was young, about 10 people, including relatives, lived in this house. There are many vacant rooms, so it would be easy to accommodate my brother and his wife. If that's the case, we welcome you, my father said, and my brother and his wife looked relieved. As we all gathered for dinner, Joseph and my brother quickly hit it off, becoming as close as brothers. I thought I'd try to talk to Mary as well. Mary is a woman in her 40s, but she still has a cute face. She's very shy, and I couldn't find common ground. Mary, please be friends with me too. Yes, thank you. Mary seemed a bit hard to approach. Even though I tried to engage her in various topics, she only responded with, "Yes, that's right," and didn't expand the conversation. I thought she was just nervous on the first day, so I kept talking to Mary. The next day, my brother suddenly said, "I need to talk to you," and called me to the back of the house. Don't bother Mary just because she married me and started living with us. I was surprised at my brother's words. What? Did I do something? I heard you were forcing her to be friends with you. Mary is not good at that. I see, I'll be careful. I felt lonely, but if Mary was uncomfortable, I couldn't help with it. From then on, I tried not to get too close to Mary. I would talk to her if necessary, but otherwise I wouldn't. I have that kind of relationship with my father, so I thought that distance would be fine with Mary too. Then Mary started to approach me. Hey, are you ignoring me? No, I'm not ignoring you. But you said you wanted to be friends, and now you're not coming near me. But my brother told me... As I explained what was said, Mary chuckled. If you act too unnaturally, next time I'll cry that you're ignoring me, she said, and then left the scene. I was in panic. I've met various people before, and some were unpleasant. In those cases, I've always kept my distance and handled the situation. But what should I do if the person I want to distance myself from approaches me? I had no idea how to handle it, and although I tried to get closer to Mary little by little, I ended up acting suspiciously. Then my brother said to me, "Hey, I heard you ignored Mary. Accept her as family." "No, I want to be friends with Mary, but Mary..." "I heard you were blaming everything on Mary. I don't believe your story." As my brother turned his back and walked away, tears welled up in my eyes. How can I make him believe me? After some thought, I decided to record Mary's words. Soon after, Mary approached me. I had a voice recorder hidden in my pocket, so I was fully prepared. "Elizabeth, can't you do better? I'm just saying to close the distance. You act so strange when I approach. But if I talk to you, I'm accused of forcing a relationship. And if I keep my distance, you say I'm ignoring you. I don't know what to do. Just do as I say. If you quietly listen and obey, I won't say anything." Mary chuckled and went somewhere. Afterward, as expected, my brother came and said, "What did you do to Mary? She was crying that you were harsh to her." Until now, I had only felt bad, but now I was prepared. Listen to this recording first. I took out the voice recorder and played the conversation between Mary and me. But my brother criticized me for recording it. "You think you're right by doing something so sneaky." "What?" "Recording a conversation is the lowest. You're not recording now, are you?" "No, I'm not." "Empty your pockets." I showed that my pockets were empty. I wouldn't record my own brother. "So you think it's okay to record Mary because she's lying?" "But Mary lies." "Mary is my wife. I understand if you're upset that a stranger has come in, but you're an adult, so stop acting like a child." My brother gave me a cold look and left. I was only hoping to resolve things here, so the shock was great. I knew I couldn't let things continue like this, so I decided to consult with my parents and Joseph. I was a little scared, but I let everyone listen to the voice recorder. I thought they would blame me for recording, like my brother did, but they said, "I've also felt suspicious of Mary. What is Robert doing while his sister is suffering? Yes, that girl pretends to do housework but slacks off. She's a cunning child." My parents listened seriously to my story and voiced their dissatisfaction with Mary. Robert blamed me for recording. He said I was sneaky. Then Joseph tightly grasped my hand. "Elizabeth must have felt so hurt by Mary, right? You wouldn't have recorded anything if she hadn't treated you like that." "Don't worry. I'm on your side, Elizabeth." Hearing Joseph's kind words, I broke down in tears of relief. Afterward, my father and Joseph seemed to have talked to my brother. When they explained that Mary was also at fault, my brother had no choice but to agree. And on the surface, my brother and I made up. But I had lost my trust in him. In the past, my brother was always on my side, no matter what. I understand that his wife Mary is important to him now, but I can't trust him anymore since he blamed me, even though it was clear that Mary was at fault. After that, Mary continued to target me, telling my brother behind my back, "Elizabeth did this," every time something happened. The problem surfaced. my brother blamed me and I denied it. Then my parents and Joseph would defend me, and this cycle repeated. After this happened several times, my brother glared at me with hateful eyes and yelled at my parents and Joseph. "You are defending her? I am disappointed in you, Dad, Mom, and Joseph." Mary stood behind my brother with a victimized expression, and the rest of us were dumbfounded by her. I then started to stay in my room because I had work from home. My mother said, "You don't have to do housework, Elizabeth. Stay away from Mary." At this time, my parents were also telling my brother and his wife to leave the house. "We can't keep people who cause problems in the house." "You mean Elizabeth, right? Kick Elizabeth out." "Are you serious? I'm talking about you too. I'm the eldest son and heir. It's natural for us to stay in this house, right?" "We don't need an heir in this house. I just want to live peacefully. It was fun when it was just the four of us, Robert, but everything changed when you came." I accidentally overheard my father and brother's conversation, and I began to think that if this problem continued, I should be the one to leave. Then a decisive incident occurred. While I was working from home in my room on the second floor, I heard a loud noise as if something had fallen down the stairs. The stairs were right outside my room. Startled by the noise, I immediately opened the door. There, at the bottom of the stairs, Mary had fallen. "Are you okay?" As I rushed over, my brother quickly arrived and picked up Mary. Then Mary pointed at me and said, "Elizabeth, Me? I didn't do anything." But my brother wouldn't listen. What were you planning to do to Mary?" He came up the stairs, grabbed me by the collar, and yelled in my ear, "I can call the police, you know." I couldn't stop crying. I hadn't done anything and felt so bad. Downstairs, Mary was sticking her tongue out at me while operating her mobile from her pocket. Probably, Mary had played a sound effect of something falling down the stairs at full volume. The sound was unnatural for something that had fallen. "Hey, Robert, I really didn't do anything. Instead, check Mary's mobile phone and see what Mary just did." "You are blaming Mary? You're the worst. Stay away from Mary. If you come near her again, I won't forgive you." My brother glared at me with eyes full of hatred. The brother who used to be so kind seemed like a stranger now. I realized that we could never go back to the good times we once had. Fortunately, Joseph believed my words. "Elizabeth wouldn't do something like that. Don't worry, I'm definitely on your side." Joseph's presence was incredibly reassuring. Of course, my parents were not fooled by Mary's deception either. I've fallen down those stairs before, but it never made that sound, and Mary didn't have a single scratch. It's unnatural. My father agreed with my mother, so we discussed and made a plan. First, to catch my brother and his wife off guard, Joseph and I left the house, bought a condominium near our workplace, and moved in. Unlike our family home, it was only a 3-room place, so cleaning was easier. After a while, my mother called, her voice filled with anger, and I had a feeling I knew what had happened. "That girl, now that you've left, she's saying I'm bullying her. I never bullied her, I just treated her formally, but Robert, I was hoping she would at least get along with Dad and Mom. We talked with Dad, and we decided to speed up our original plan. We've reached out our limit." From my usually gentle mother's raised voice, I could tell that Mary must have treated her terribly. My father forcefully pushed the plan forward, and they soon moved into our condominium. My father was furious, saying, "That guy's no longer my son. Joseph is my only son. Elizabeth married a good partner. I'm counting on you from now on." And he drank with Joseph to lift his spirits. Soon after, they put our family home up for sale and told my brother, "We've put the house up for sale. If you want to continue living there, buy it at the listed price. If you can't, leave by the end of the month. If you want to stay, buy it at the listed price." My brother's desperate voice came through the phone, not easily accepting my father's words. The family home sold for less than expected, but it still fetched around $27,000. My brother and his wife, who had lost their savings in a fire and had been spending freely while living in the family home, couldn't afford that amount. Moreover, my brother had apparently gone through debt, restricting without our knowledge, so he wouldn't pass a loan review. Mary hadn't been working for a long time, so getting a loan would be tough. Knowing this, their words about not depositing their savings in the bank but keeping them at home started to seem suspicious. Soon after, my brother came to us for help. We didn't intend to tell him our address, but my father was followed by my brother on his way home and our location was discovered. However, none of us opened the door and we responded through the intercom. My brother's face was haggard and tears welled in his eyes. "I've been constantly blamed by Mary. Being told to do something about it since we got married, she's looked down on me. And if I don't follow her orders, she throws a fit. That's why I had to act that way towards Elizabeth. Please forgive me. I really don't think Elizabeth pushed Mary down the stairs." My brother repeated his excuses over and over. Apparently, Mary is selfish and she can't be satisfied unless things go her way. My brother isn't allowed to argue, and when they're alone, she seems to take a dictatorial attitude, forcing all the housework on him. Listening to my brother's story, my father repeatedly said, "You could have handled it differently. Why didn't you come to us then?" Showing no intention of forgiving him. I thought it was bad enough with Elizabeth, but my wife suffered too, and I can't forgive you guys. You chose to side with Mary, right? Then you have to act like a man to the end. Well, wait. The house thing was Mary's idea. She said if we kicked out Elizabeth at Mom, Dad would give it to me. I told her many times that Dad might sell the house. My prediction came true, and Mary gets irritated every day, taking it out on me. Help me. I'm a victim too. At least leave the house to me. A gift during your lifetime is fine. I don't need any cash. None of us sympathized with my brother's desperate plea. My father yelled into the intercom, "If you are going to say that much, bring Mary here. I have nothing more to say to you." Then my father hung up the intercom. 2 hours later, my brother returned with Mary. Apparently, he couldn't persuade my father and must have been scolded by Mary. His face was red, as if he had been crying. Mary had a sullen look on her face and taunted, "Are you so poor that you can't even give your son a house?" A vein popped in my father's forehead, but he took a deep breath and explained to Mary, "We value family above all else. Joseph takes care of Elizabeth and us, so we trust him. But what about you? You falsely accused Elizabeth, who did nothing wrong. Fortunately, none of us believed you, and you even tried to do the same to Mom. I don't want to recognize you as family. I have no intention of giving you the house. At least apologize to Elizabeth and Mom." My father conveyed his earnest feelings to Mary, but his words didn't get through to her. "Huh? I'm not in the wrong. The world has always gone my way. That's how I met a husband who listens to me. Shouldn't you all do the same?" I couldn't stand Mary's insolent attitude. "Hey, do you know how much I suffered being falsely accused? You probably don't. You were the one who set it up. It's like everything goes dark and you feel despair. Do you think it's okay to do that to someone? I'm the only one who's allowed to. It's always been that way. Oh, really? Then there is not a single person around you who likes you, is there? Huh? There is. This guy. Mary pointed at my brother. No, Robert doesn't love you, Mary, anymore. Can't you see it in his face? What he feels for you is fear, not love. If you continue like this, you'll never be loved by anyone for the rest of your life. Mary's face, filled with anger, was directed at the camera. Even I felt fear looking at that face. So I conveyed my feelings to my brother. Hey, Robert, are you really okay with this? The old Robert was brave, and if boys teased me, you'd come to help me right away. I always thought you were strong, Robert. Wake up already. Then my mother, who had come to stand next to me, raised her voice to my brother. I don't think of you as my son anymore. I believe you'll wake up. If you stay with Mary like this, you'll only get worse. While my mother was saying this, Mary, looking confused, took my brother and left. Did my mother's words get through to him in the end? After that, my father really sold the house. It seems my brother and his wife moved into a cheap apartment. My brother was still under Mary's brainwashing, but he began to feel a little distrustful of her attitude. Our desperate voices seemed to have reached him somewhat, and he finally took action. Though all he did was to explain the situation to friends and co-workers, he received the same persuasion from them as from us, and the brainwashing seemed to gradually unravel. He finally understood how crazy Mary's words were. When he confronted Mary with a divorce, she demanded a lump sum payment of $90,000, and they began to argue, as my calmer brother told my mother over the phone. Divorcing over personality differences is difficult. It took my brother a year to finally divorce Mary. After the divorce, Mary's bad reputation spread, and no one wanted to deal with her. Apparently, she was already estranged from her parents and is leading a lonely life. I hope she never victimizes anyone like my brother again and stays quiet. After that, I returned to peaceful days. But because of Mary, I realized I could be falsely accused at any time, so I started taking measures to protect myself, like installing security cameras in the living room and entrance. Even if I can't trust my parents and Joseph, it doesn't mean that people coming from outside can be trusted. No one knows what can happen when. From now on, I'll research how to deal with false accusations so that my family doesn't suffer from them. And I'll teach everyone. I've decided to protect my family in this way. After all, I now have the most precious treasure to protect in my belly.
My first time dealing with a serious illness was far more difficult than I could have ever imagined. I was unable to move as freely as I wanted, and breathing was a struggle. My husband, who scorned my ill self, saying, "We don't need a bald and sickly woman," added insult to injury. As my body cried out in pain, my heart cried out too when I discovered my husband's affair. How could he cheat on me in this condition? I will never forgive him. I am determined to recover from this illness and make him regret his actions. My name is Alyssa. I am 30 years old. I was living happily with my husband Bob, whom I married a year ago. One day, on my way home from work, I was suddenly struck with immense physical pain and collapsed at the subway station. I was rushed to the hospital in an ambulance, and after a series of detailed examinations, it was confirmed. I had cancer. Cancer. Me? Is there some kind of mistake? I, who had never had any significant illness before and was always in good health. Devastated, by this cancer diagnosis. It's not too late to treat it, but if you don't start treatment immediately, it could be dangerous. I felt like I had been hit over the head at the doctor's words. But wait a minute. I've never had any issues in my company's health screenings before. The regular health screenings at workplaces often fail to detect diseases. It's not unusual for diseases to be detected only after detailed examinations, like tumor markers and brain scans, like in your case. I can't believe it. Please come back with a family member later. We need to discuss treatment plans. The doctor's words made my vision spin. I couldn't believe this was happening to me. When I left the doctor's office, I found a flurry of missed calls from my husband on my phone. It seemed he had been contacted when I was taken to the hospital by ambulance. He had come rushing to the hospital, but he couldn't find me and had been calling me incessantly. When I told him where I was, he came right away. The moment I saw his face, all the tension I had been holding in snapped, and tears started flowing down my cheeks. Bob, what do I do? I have cancer. Cancer? You, Alyssa? You must be joking. I don't want to believe it either, but if we don't start the treatment soon, it might be too late. That's what the doctor said. Unbelievable. Bob, am I going to die? Don't say that. Of course you'll make it. Please, don't talk like that. Surrounded by other patients, I wept uncontrollably in my husband's arms. I didn't have the luxury to worry about other people. Clinging to my husband was the only way I could keep myself together. The next day, we returned to the hospital together to discuss our next steps with the primary physician. As expected, I was hospitalized immediately, and it was suggested I start chemotherapy right away. It's only been a year since we got married. Now my husband and I had to live apart. Despite this, Bob would come to cheer me up almost every day. Alyssa, I'm here. How are you feeling today? Bob, isn't your work hectic? You don't have to force yourself to come. What are you talking about? You're more important than work. But don't worry about it. Oh, I brought you some apples. You like them, don't you? Thanks. But the side effects cause severe nausea. Oh, right, I'm sorry. I also bought you some drinks and jelly. Eat them when you're feeling good. All right, I will. Thanks, Bob. My first experience with being ill was far more difficult than I had imagined, taking a toll on my body. Nausea and fatigue, coupled with the daily sight of massive hair loss. Unable to eat properly, my body quickly thinned down. The days when I thought I should diet now seemed a lifetime ago. I never thought I would lose weight like this. Between the physical and mental distress, I felt like I was falling apart. But that wasn't all. Each time he came to visit, my husband started to look away from me. You've lost a lot of weight. Bob, will you hold my hand? I reached out to my husband, but he flinched slightly, muttered, sorry, and walked out of the hospital room. His attitude left me in shock. Why? Did I do something wrong? Why do I have to go through this? I just wanted to live a normal life with Bob. Not having the luxury to think about others, I was plunged into a daily rut of self-loathing. Why me? Why is this happening to me? I would think this almost every day. However, I was able to continue my struggle with my illness, thanks to my best friend Lily. I couldn't tell anyone else that I had cancer, but I confided in her. As soon as I reached out to her, Lily rushed to the hospital. Ever since then, she's been coming to visit me in the ward whenever she can, despite her busy schedule. Alyssa, I'm here. Oh, Lily, you just came last week, too. Thank you. No worries. I've got time, and talking with you is more fun. Thanks, but I'm just, What do you mean? I mean, I look completely different now, don't I? I've lost all my hair. You must feel uncomfortable around me. Lily sighed heavily, and responded in a slightly angry tone. Hey, how long do you think we've been best friends? It's been 10 years. 10 years! Yeah, I know, but I wouldn't stop liking you just because your appearance has changed a little. Don't insult my feelings for you, Alyssa. Lily, so you don't have to worry about it. I just come to see you because I want to, not because I have to. Okay. Anyway, you need to get better soon. Remember that dessert place we wanted to go to? We still haven't been there yet. Yeah, that's right. Thank you, Lily. Lily, always holding my hand, kept encouraging me gently. Thanks to her, I could vent my frustrations that I couldn't share with my husband. Time passed, and about 2 months later, I noticed something. My husband, who used to visit me nearly every day since I was hospitalized, hadn't shown up for a while. Even when I sent him a text on WhatsApp, the only response I got was, I can't. I'm working late. Feeling really lonely, I decided to give him a call. Hello, Bob? Maybe it was because I called during his lunch break, but my husband answered the phone immediately. Ah, Alyssa, what's up? I haven't seen you at all recently, so I thought, I just wanted to hear your voice. Ah, I see. Sorry, but I'm a bit busy right now. What? But isn't it your lunch break now? I've got some things to do. Sorry. I have to hang up. What? Wait, Bob. The phone was hung up on me, and even after sending a message on WhatsApp, I received no response. Why? He used to visit me often. Could it be something happened while I was not around? Just when I started to feel uneasy, my best friend Lily came to me with an unusually gloomy expression. She tried to act as usual, but I could tell immediately that something was different. Hey, Lily, did something happen? Upon my inquiry, she showed obvious signs of disturbance. Why? Nothing's wrong. But you seem different. You seem to be forcing yourself to be cheerful. There's really nothing. Instead, did you see the news online? That comedian you like. Lily, please, just tell me. When I looked straight into her eyes, Lily awkwardly averted her gaze. After a moment of silence, she finally opened her mouth. Actually, I saw something yesterday. You saw? What did you see? I saw your husband walking arm in arm with another woman. Excuse me? So sorry for springing this on you. I might have seen it wrong. My mind raced with panic at her words. Bob having an affair with another woman? No, he wouldn't do that. But he hasn't been visiting the hospital lately. Could it be? I decided to confide in Lily. Lily, I think what you saw was indeed Bob. Eh? Why would you say? Bob hasn't visited the hospital in these past 2 weeks. Plus, he lied to me about working late yesterday. No way. I can't believe Bob would do such a thing. I called his office yesterday for the first time in a while, but he cut me off, saying he was busy. If he was cheating, that would make sense. Alyssa, Lily, there's something I want to ask you. I decided to ask Lily to investigate my husband on my behalf. So she visited a detective agency and requested an investigation into my husband. 1 week later, seeing Lily's face after a long time, it was evident from her somber expression that the investigation results were not good. Struggling to start the conversation, I thanked her with a forced smile. Lily, you've been investigating, right? Thank you. Can I see it? Alyssa, maybe you're better off not seeing this. That's okay. I'm already expecting the worst. But it's okay. I took the envelope from Lily and checked its contents. There were photos of my husband holding hands with another woman, kissing on the street. I couldn't help but feel a rush of anger, my hand shaking as I held the photos. He's been doing this behind my back while I've been sick. I sent a message to my husband on WhatsApp saying, I need to talk to you at the hospital, and forcibly sent the worried Lily home. That evening, when my husband visited my hospital room, I confronted him directly. I'll just ask straightforwardly, Bob. You're cheating, aren't you? He seemed surprised for a moment, but then defiantly retorted, So what if I am? And what if I've been having an affair? Are you going to blame me? Just tell me why. Why would you do such a thing? Why? Isn't it obvious? I don't love you anymore. Just like that, in a matter of weeks? Why would you suddenly, in response to my question, he threw back the cruelest words imaginable. Have you looked at yourself in the mirror lately? What? You've washed your hair. Your eyes are sunken in, and you look sickly. To be blunt, you look like a ghost. Where's the charm of the woman I used to know? How can you say that? I don't want a woman who's bald and skeletal. That's why. Are you satisfied? With that, Bob averted his gaze from me. The man sitting across from me was a stranger, not the Bob I knew. Ignoring my silence, he pulled a piece of paper from his bag and shoved it in front of me. It was unmistakably divorce papers. Are you serious about this? Of course. Like I said, I don't have an ounce of love for you anymore. There's no point in us being together. But why? Listen, you've lost your charm as a woman. It's a waste of life to be married to someone like you. Do you plan on keeping me tied down to this hospital room forever? For both our sakes, please sign the divorce papers quickly. In that moment, the last sliver of hope I had held on to shattered. This man was no longer the Bob I knew. Staying married to him would only diminish my self-worth. With that realization, I picked up a pen with trembling hands and scribbled my signature. I thrust the signed divorce papers at Bob, speaking in an unusually low voice. Happy now? We're strangers from this point on. Don't ever show your face to me again. With that, Bob snorted in a taunting manner. I wouldn't want to be with a woman like you, even if you begged me. Enjoy your life with your illness. Good luck with your treatment. I hope you realize you won't find happiness this way. The last thing I need is a lecture from a sick woman like you. Goodbye. With those words, Bob left the hospital room. I lay back on the bed, staring blankly at the stark white ceiling. Ah, what a short-lived marriage that was. What on earth was my life with him all about? Is this what married life is inevitably like? While I felt an enormous void inside of me, the feeling of not having to deal with such a jerk ever again was also substantial. With that in mind, I felt a bit lighter. 2 years later, having endured life with illness, I was finally discharged from the hospital with Lily's support. Now I'm living alone in an apartment, and though it's part-time, I've managed to return to work. On Lily's recommendation, I've also started using social media. By sharing my changing appearance on social media, I was able to connect with others who had overcome cancer. I was finally starting to regain a fulfilling life. It was one day like any other when my ex-husband called my cell phone. Hello? Ah, Alyssa. You've been discharged, huh? Good for you. And why do you care? And who told you? I saw it on your social media. You were out somewhere the other day, right? Sneaking a look at your ex-wife's social media is creepy. Can you stop it, please? Don't be like that. I was just calling because I was worried. That's fine then. Goodbye. Just as I was about to hang up, he shouted over the phone, Wait, hold on. What? Well, where are you living now? Why would I need to tell you that? The thing is, I need your help. What? After we divorced, my affair was exposed at work and I got fired. I borrowed money to get by, and now my debts have gotten out of hand. Is that so? And? Now I'm about to be kicked out of the apartment we used to live in, so please, I need your help. What about your mistress? You have a girlfriend, right? I broke up with her a long time ago. The moment I lost my job, she disappeared. Can you believe that? As if he was saying, I'm not in the wrong. It's the company that fired me, and the woman I cheated with. His attitude reeked of denial, and it left me absolutely disgusted. This man had not grown at all. I told him straight out, I'm sorry, but I have no intention of dealing with you anymore. What? Why? We were married once, weren't we? What are you talking about? We're divorced. We're just strangers now, aren't we? Don't mess with me. Do you know how much I supported you after you fell sick? You should repay that debt. Debt? Yeah, that's right. I was the one who was there for you, supporting your mental health when you lost all your hair. And now, you won't even help me when I'm in trouble? Had he forgotten that he was the one who cheated on me? His selfish attempts to paint me as the bad guy left me shaking with anger. Enough. Who do you think you are? Who was the one who cheated on me while I was battling my illness? Don't give me that crap over a little cheating. It was because you were too pitiful to look at. What? I don't know anything about that. I was in the depths of despair, suffering from illness, and then you betrayed me and pushed me further down. Do you understand that? What the? Calm down, will you? Calm down? How do you expect me to do that? How many more selfish things do you need to say to feel satisfied? How many more feelings do you need to trample on to feel satisfied? There's no way I'm going to help garbage like you. If anything, you should suffer more. Wait a minute. I was hoping we could get back together. What? Who said anything about getting back together? I don't want anything to do with someone who can betray people as easily as you do. I've made up my mind. I'm going to sue for emotional distress. Emotional distress? He probably didn't expect to be sued for emotional distress after calling me so casually. My ex-husband began to panic. Well, wait a minute. Emotional distress? I told you, I don't have any money right now. I don't care. It's none of my business. Hey, Alyssa, shut up. Don't you dare call my name so casually. I'll never forget what you did to me, and I'll never forgive you. The scars of your cheating while I was pregnant and fighting disease will never fade. I'll squeeze every penny out of you for emotional distress and make you suffer even more. Well, wait. Help me. I ignored his pleas and hung up the phone. I blocked his number so I wouldn't have to hear his voice again and headed straight to the lawyer's office. The evidence of his affair that Lily had found that day was, of course, still valid. Thanks to that, I was able to demand a significant amount of damages from my ex-husband and his mistress. As a result, they found themselves deep in debt, sinking as far as they could possibly go. My ex, who had been fired from his previous job, seemed to have a hard time finding steady employment and apparently had to work multiple part-time jobs. Rumor has it that he's been living on the run, trying to avoid debt collectors. On the other hand, I'm living a peaceful life by myself. Recently, I've been able to work more hours and have started to spend money on my hobbies. My current excitement is a trip to Hawaii with Lily next month. I've caused her quite a bit of trouble, so I'm covering all the travel expenses. But to be honest, I'm planning to use the damages from his infidelity for the trip. LOL. Being married isn't the only path to happiness. What really matters is having friends who genuinely care about you. I intend to cherish the best friend who helped me during that time for the rest of my life.